Jennifer Schutter, Field Specialist in Horticulture for University of Missouri Extension. I am located in the Adair County Extension Center in Kirksville, and I'm going to answer some frequently asked gardening questions. A question that we often get from home gardeners is, when can I plant my garden? And this may be flowers or vegetables. So let's talk about when you should do that. So it's first important to know, when is the expected first and last frost dates? Well, that depends on where you live in Missouri. In Northeast Missouri, the last frost date is expected around April 25th. And many gardeners around here use Mother's Day as a general rule of thumb or a guide as to when to plant their warm season vegetables like tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. In the fall, the average first frost date is October 10th, or it's around October 10th here in Northeast Missouri. So when is a good time to plant vegetables? Well, vegetables are divided into two categories. There's cool season vegetables like the leafy greens, like lettuce and collards and spinach. And then there's the cold crops like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and legumes like peas, snow peas, that should be planted in late March through mid-April in Northeast Missouri. And if you wait much past mid-April, it gets too warm and these crops don't do well. Warm season crops like tomatoes, peppers, squash, green beans, these should be planted when all danger of frost is past and the soil has warmed sufficiently. If they are planted too early, the plants don't really grow. They just kind of sit there and wait for the soil to warm up. What causes small plants poor heading and early flowering of broccoli? This is a fairly common question that we get. Well, broccoli that is planted too late in the spring will experience heat stress and flower early. Transplanting an oversized transplant will often result in premature flowering. Other causes of early flowering include nitrogen stress, which is too little nitrogen. And when broccoli flowers, it puts on a yellow flower and then it starts setting seed, and that's not good. So you want to prevent that, and the best way to do that is to actually plant the broccoli in late March or early April while the days are still cool. Broccoli likes cool weather, and it will produce a nice broccoli head usually by the end of May or first part of June if it is planted early enough. If it's planted too late, it just goes to flower. And another common question that we get regarding broccoli is, should I plant broccoli in the spring or in the fall? And I'll tell you, I have planted broccoli in both the spring and the fall. I usually always plant broccoli in the spring, but last year I planted in the fall and I had a fantastic crop of broccoli, and I've realized that I do think fall broccoli is better than spring broccoli. There's just less insect pressure in the fall. So I do like fall broccoli plantings better, but I always plant broccoli in the spring too. So fall broccoli is considered by most gardeners to have better broccoli than spring broccoli in Missouri. Fall broccoli can be direct seeded or transplanted. And if you're going to start your own broccoli seed, you need to do that in July for setting the broccoli out in late August or that first part of September. Do not plant broccoli if the temperatures are high, like more than 90 degrees Fahrenheit. My cabbage failed to produce a head. Why? Well, cabbage will not form a head if it is planted too late. Just like broccoli, you can't plant it too late, and it's exposed to high temperatures. It may be under fertilized, and maybe that's why it didn't produce a head, or it is drought stress. So if we're going through a dry time in the spring, make sure your broccoli, cabbage, whatever the crop may be, make sure it's getting sufficient water. I have noticed small white to cream-colored butterflies flying around my cabbage plants. What are they? Well, those are the adult stage of the imported cabbage worm butterfly, and they are looking for a place to lay their eggs. The eggs hatch and they begin to feed on the leaves. So these butterflies, they're flying around. You'll notice them flying around, and they will lay little eggs, usually on the undersides of the leaves of your broccoli or your cabbage or your cole crops. And then they hatch into little green worms. And as those green worms feed on your cole crops, they get bigger and bigger. And then they eventually pupate, and the cycle starts all over again. Well, how do I control worms in my cabbage and broccoli? Use a lightweight row cover to exclude moths and prevent them from laying eggs. You can use BT, which is found in the insecticide Dipel, and that is found at local farm stores and garden centers. And Dipel will effectively control worms and conserve beneficial insects. Begin the application when worms are small. And I have used Dipel and it does work. So it's a good product. It does contain the active ingredient BT. Why don't my carrot seeds germinate? Well, it takes quite a while for carrot seeds to germinate. It can take almost 3 weeks before carrot seed will germinate and emerge from the soil. Do not plant carrot seeds very deep. Usually no more than 1/4 of an inch do you want to plant a carrot seed. So I too get impatient waiting for carrots to germinate, but they finally do. It just takes a while. When should I plant potatoes? In Northeast Missouri, potatoes are best planted in early to mid-April. When should I harvest new potatoes? Or when should I harvest my potatoes? New potatoes can be harvested as soon as they reach a suitable size. Potatoes for storage can be harvested when the vines turn yellow and they die down. Do not harvest potatoes when soil is very wet and muddy. This will increase the chance of rotting. So make sure you're harvesting potatoes during a drier time when your soil has dried out. But I like to harvest new potatoes, and I usually harvest them in mid-June, usually mid-June, maybe late June. My lettuce seeds did not germinate. Why is that? Well, lettuce seeds require light to germinate. Perhaps the seeds were seeded too deep, and old seed will have reduced germination. Lettuce seed does not store very well. So make sure you are using fresh seed and that you're not planting it too deep. How can rhubarb be kept from seeding? Should these flower stalks be removed? Well, all rhubarb will eventually flower. However, poor growing conditions such as drought and hot weather stimulate flowering. You should cut off the flower stalks as soon as they are noticed to help prevent weakening the plant. So you may see that sometime in May, you'll see your plant put on this white flower head. Just go ahead and cut that off. It doesn't need a set seed. Why are the stems of my rhubarb leaves green rather than red? Well, there is a difference between varieties in stem color. However, lack of color development in plants that once had red stems may be the result of too much shade. My garden spinach has formed a flower stalk. Why? Well, spinach does that, and lettuce and these leafy greens. So my spinach will do that too when it's nearing the end. Spinach will bolt or form a flower stalk when exposed to long days and warm temperatures. So usually by the end of May and early part of June, the spinach will form a flower stalk. And I will snap that off for a while, and then it just, the plant's done as we go into June, and then I'll wait for fall, and then I'll make another planting of spinach, usually in late August. And in these pictures here, you see we see some spinach. These are spinach plants that I planted in a container. And then you see seed heads on the spinach, and that is what you can snap off. This is giant noble spinach. I planted that for the first time last year, and I was really happy with how it produced. It was very productive, and it produced very large leaves. So that is one variety that I like and recommend. But Bloomsdale is also a very common spinach variety, and that's found in just about every garden center. Now on to some general gardening questions. May I use treated wood to make my raised bed? Well, do not use railroad ties because creosote vapors can cause or can be toxic to the plant. So don't use treated railroad ties. Treated lumber should not be in direct contact with root vegetables like potatoes or beets. And you probably should line your garden bed with a landscape fabric for protection and then fill it with soil. Is it possible to apply too much lime to the garden? And the answer is yes on this. Most vegetable gardens grow best in soils that are slightly acidic. This is about a 6.0 to a 6.8. 7 is neutral. Excess liming can make the soil too alkaline, which reduces the availability of some nutrients and reduces plant growth. So gardens do not need to be limed year after year after year. Okay, really you should do a soil test to find out how much lime your soil needs, if any, if you've not done a soil test in a while. Is it safe to add sawdust, like shavings and other wood products, to a garden? And the answer is yes. However, it is better to have these products composted for over a year before you add them. Wood products, especially when fresh, tie up nitrogen, so plants may become starved. When wood products are added, additional nitrogen is necessary. Here's a fruit question that's pretty common. My peach trees have curled pinkish colored leaves. What is wrong with them? Well, this is called peach leaf curl. It is a fungal disease and it affects the leaves of peach trees and nectarine trees. It causes the leaves to have a puckered, blistered, and pinkish colored appearance. Fungicide sprays are not effective once the tree is showing the symptoms. A fungicide like daconil, which contains the active ingredient chlorothalonil, should be applied when the tree is dormant. And I make the application of chlorothalonil in November and then again in March here in Northeast Missouri. And here's a lawn question. At what mowing height should I mow my grass? Well, here in Northeast Missouri, we tend to have fescue lawns. That's a cool season grass that does well around here. And a mowing height of about 3 to 3.5 inches is recommended for cool season grasses. What is the best cool season lawn grass for Northeast Missouri? Well, that is a fescue blend. And a fescue blend is a blend of different fescue varieties. You might also find a fescue mix at local garden centers. And this is a mix of different grass species, such as fescue, perennial ryegrass, and Kentucky bluegrass. But I prefer and recommend a fescue blend for Northeast Missouri. And then there's what we have, or what we call Mother Nature's recipe. And that's what a lot of gardeners or homeowners have. And that's just a little bit of everything. That's, we hope it's mostly lawn grass, but there's sometimes some dandelions mixed in there and some creeping Charlie and some white clover. And that's what we call Mother Nature's recipe. And here's a tree question that's fairly common. Can I prune my trees in the spring and summer? And the answer is spring and summer are not good times to prune trees. Trees should be pruned during the dormant season. This helps prevent the spread of disease. If a branch hits you in the head while you're mowing your lawn, you can remove it. It is not going to hurt the tree. And regarding bulb flowers, I don't like the look of the foliage after my daffodils and tulips are done blooming. Can I remove it? No, do not remove foliage from bulb flowers until it has turned brown and died down. The bulb must have the foliage to photosynthesize and put energy and nutrients back into the bulb in order to bloom next year. So just leave that foliage there until it dies down. What you can do is incorporate some annuals, add some petunias or marigolds or other annual flowers around that dead or dying bulb foliage to kind of hide it. And in early spring, snapdragons, pansies, dianthus are good choices. And then as we go into the warmer days in May, then you can start planting the petunias and the warm season flowers. And for more information on gardening, you can contact me. And my email address is schutterjl@missouri.edu. And that is SCHUTTERJL @ Missouri spelled out .edu. Happy gardening, everyone.